Okay, so you have been working from home like a full-time job office situation. I follow you on Instagram. I see everything that you're doing. Most people take a minute to kind of like, I need to catch my breath. I need to figure out what's happening. And it seems like you are just going like full steam ahead in the midst of this quarantine. Like, where did you get the vision for what this season was supposed to look like for you from?
Well, to me, I feel like I've been through a lot worse things than what we're currently going through right now. So for our government officials to call us to just sit at home and to be still, it's not an issue, for me. I ran my business on faith, and I continue to run my business on faith, and that's my driving force because I just choose to not worry about the things that I can't control, like this whole situation that we're going through. I can't do anything about it, but I choose to focus on the things that I can control, and I can control my attitude. I can control my perspective. I can control whether or not I choose to be positive or negative. I can control whether or not I choose to be happy. And in this season, right now, in this moment in our life, I just choose to be positive. I choose to be that light for other people who may not look at this situation from a positive perspective and to show them, God's grace and his goodness still is going on during this pandemic. Like God has not left us. He's still here with us. And, I stand on Jeremiah 17 that God will still allow us to bear fruit during this drought. Some may look at this as a drought. And I just pray that God continues to allow me to bear fruit. God continues to bless me with new visions, new ideas, new creativity to keep me focused on my ultimate goal. Because just because the world stops doesn't mean that I stop.
Mm.
I started this company not knowing that my company was going to take off the way that it has, but it has, and it's been because I put my trust in God. So even during this pandemic, I choose to still trust. I choose to stand on God's word, and I choose to still be productive and choose what I can focus on. And I'm going to continue to focus on being great. And for the fact that I have two kids that I still have to be here for, and I want my kids to know that everything's going to be okay. Like we may not understand what's going on, but his word says that all things are going to work together for our good. So I just choose to stand on that. And we know that he didn't say all good things. He didn't say all bad things. He said all things.
Yeah.
So whatever comes out of this situation, I just pray that God continues to get the glory and that he births a new me better than I was before this pandemic. And I continue to give him all the glory in everything that I do. So I just choose to keep pressing forward. And you did a sermon on that, I think like right around when all of this happened. And that sermon, it was just like, it got me boiling inside because I'm like, yes, this is how I think. Like, we got to keep pressing forward despite what's going on because the way you win, so let's say if this company goes into a recession, the way you win is to keep your foot on the pedal. And I choose to keep my foot on the pedal and stay positive and focused.
So, that reminds me, you're talking about keeping your foot on the pedal even in high pressure seasons, right? Seasons where it seems like things are out of our control, really maintaining what is within our control. And I think that keeping your foot on the pressure, I think that that is exactly why I have been able to really become who I have become in the kingdom. But I have
Mm-hmm.
noticed that that characteristic always existed in me. I just wasn't putting my pressure on the pedal in the right direction. So I think that when
Absolutely.
my brokenness was driving, that I knew how to put pressure on the pedal, but it was leading me to, maybe pain and destruction, things that were less than who God called me to be. And so what I really had to do was learn to transform my mind so that when I applied pressure, it was towards what would build me, not what would break me. And I
Yeah.
imagine that if you're like me and you have that pressure spirit, you know how to apply pressure, that you have used it in some areas that maybe weren't always as healthy for you. Can you tell me a little bit about who you were before you got this clarity, before you got this amazing vision and purpose for your life? Where were some areas in your life where you maybe applied pressure in an unhealthy way?
Um, so in an unhealthy way, I would say, so the way I grew up, my dad is a drug addict. He still suffers from drug addiction to this day. And I know that the reason why I'm somewhat guarded, the reason why I have, somewhat trust issues is because growing up, I had to basically guard myself. I had to always protect myself. My dad, He would steal from us. We used to have to hide our money from him. So I grew up just not trusting people.
Wow.
And I learned that when you are so guarded and you have those trust issues, that sometimes you can miss out on great blessings. You can miss out on the people that God has put in your life to actually help you, but you're going to miss out because you're just so guarded. So for me, I took how I grew up and I tried to channel my trust issues into just being guarded and not letting anyone in. So that wasn't good for me because I did miss out on a lot of opportunities to come across great people that could have helped me grow, but I choose to not let that person in because of my trust issues. So that was one way that I did not choose to shift my focus in a positive way. I chose to let that inhibit me, and I had to learn that I have to take expectations off of people. The reason why I had trust issues with my dad is because I was expecting him to be my protector, my provider, and that just wasn't in him. So once I learned to love him and accept him for who he is and take those expectations off of him, I've learned to just live a happier life. And I tell everybody that, like, when you go into things and you don't expect anything, you're just happier, because if you expect something from someone and they don't deliver, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. So I've just learned to channel my focus differently, and I've learned to just give it to God and let God control him and deal with him. And I just choose to continue to pray for him. I still honor, I still love and respect my dad, but I cannot let his past mistakes and his current mistakes dictate how I'm going to run and live my life.
You know, I hear you really talking about learning the power of vulnerability. And I think that so many of us are trying to guard ourselves and protect ourselves from future hurts because of past hurts. And I feel like no matter how much you try to protect yourself from future hurts, like, hurt finds a way to seep in. You can be a brick wall, you could be Fort Knox, and there's still moments that make us, have to catch our breath, which stands to reason to me. That means that hurt is a part of life, and so is happiness as well. And until we learn that being vulnerable means that we have to accept both of those, but that neither of those can stop us from becoming who we are supposed to be, then we live life, I think, small, when God has called us to be so big in love, so big in gratitude, so big in generosity, and to be able to come to a place where you honor someone who you expected to be a different role in your life. I think it's something that's going to resonate with so many of the people who listen to the podcast, because I have had so many people who have fractured parental relationships because someone failed to meet their expectation. And because of that failure, they begin to live life guarded, thinking to themselves, I can't afford to open up. I can't afford to risk being hurt. But it sounds like you found a way to experience joy in vulnerability. I think sometimes we focus so much on, if I open up, I might experience pain, I might experience trauma. But what if you're missing out on joy? And to your point, relationships that are going to be beneficial to growing you and exposing you to love and joy and happiness that you would have maybe never had.
Yeah. And to that point, me not wanting to expose that vulnerability also kept me from sharing my truth in the reason why I started Mielle, because I did not want people to see me in a vulnerable state. I don't know if you know, but I lost my son when I was 8 months pregnant with my third child. That happened in 2013. Mielle was started in 2014. And when I started Mielle, I would tell people basically like the cookie cutter, surfacey version of the reason why I started. Yes, I've always had a passion for hair care. Yes, I was a nurse at one point, and I took my nursing background and my passion and merged it together and created this amazing company. But what a lot of people don't know, and what I didn't share in the beginning, was that Mielle was birthed from a painful situation. Mm-hmm. I went through losing my son and trying to find myself. And that's when my relationship with God became closer, because when I lost my son due to having a high-risk pregnancy, a uterine rupture, nobody could help me get through that situation. My mom couldn't. My husband couldn't. The only person that I could lean on was God. And that's when me and my husband both got saved. About 6 years ago, we got saved, and that's when our lives started to shift. My son spent 6 months on life support because we couldn't let go of the fact that, he was with the Lord. Like we were still trying to hold on to him in the flesh. And I didn't want to share that story. So as I was going through this, going back and forth to the hospital, me talking about hair care and studying hair care was actually an outlet for me. It was something that helped me not focus on what I was currently going through. It was an outlet for me. So that's how Mielle was birthed. It was birthed from a painful situation and something that was distracting me from what was currently going on. But as Mielle started to grow, I stopped telling that story. I didn't want to tell that story because I was afraid of being vulnerable and people seeing me in that aspect. And I will never forget, I had a conversation with the hairstylist, and I began to open up and tell her my story as she was doing my hair. And when she was doing my hair, she said, you know, Monique, I feel that I've always felt that it was something more to your story that you were holding back. And I thought about it and I said, you know what? You're right. Me not sharing my testimony, I felt was not being obedient to God. So I had an opportunity to go on national television, and I said, I'm going to share my story. I'm going to share the real reason why Mielle was birthed. And when I shared my story, like it felt like such a relief.
Yeah.
And to hear so many women come to me and say, you know what? You inspired me because I was going through the same thing, or I went through the same thing. And because I see what God has done for you, like that gives me hope. And that was confirmation for me that I can't keep my story to myself. It's not mine. I don't own it. It is for me to share with God's people so they can truly see the work of God in your life if you decide to submit to him. So I just wanted to just piggyback off of that vulnerability. Like we have to show that to our audience. That's what God wants.
I totally agree. I mean, sharing my story, and now it seemed like such an organic part of who I am. But I got pregnant as a teenager. I was 13 years old. I had my son at 14, but I got pregnant at a time where there wasn't social media. There wasn't the shade room. It wasn't like someone was going to be able to know that I got pregnant. It was basically within the context of our family and our church. It wasn't national. But as I began to kind of go through my journey of being up and down and lost and found, I came to this point where I was blogging and people were connecting to my blog, and I felt like I had this secret that I didn't tell them about the depths of my pain. So I wrote about my pain, I wrote about my experiences, but I didn't tell this one thing because I was afraid of how people would look at me. But when I came to a point where I accepted my story for myself, then I was able to share it with other people, and I did so. And to your point, I felt like a major load had been lifted. I wonder, people ask me a lot of times, like, I have a testimony, I want to know how and when I should share it. And the first thing I always tell people, until you're able to hear your own testimony, like to tell yourself what you've gone through, then you shouldn't share it with other people, because I think sometimes people want to have testimony service so that they can feel better. I want someone to tell me this was okay. I want somebody to validate my feelings and emotions, instead of it being like a powerful truth that is meant to help others. It's really meant to help heal us. And I don't think that you should share a testimony that's still in the process of healing, because people's opinions can infect your healing journey and make you feel worse. I wonder, what would be some advice that you would give someone who has a testimony? Maybe they feel like they should share it at some point, but they want to know, like, how do you know when it's time for you to share your story?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. And the way that I knew that it was time, because again, I was able to share my testimony without breaking down and crying.
Yeah.
There were times where, I tried to tell it, but every time I was on a panel or there was an opportunity to tell my story, like I couldn't get the whole story out without breaking down and crying. And so when I finally released it, because I'm really good with one-on-one interaction, and with me having that conversation with my hairstylist, I do feel that God uses people as vessels, and he uses each and every one of us to speak to his people. And the thing is, we have to be obedient and pay attention. And that's where practicing stillness and getting clarity and hearing from God, that's where that comes into play, because I could have totally missed it. And what she said could have went over my head, because now I have this relationship with God and I'm so in tune with God. And I felt that she was a spiritual person. And I felt that God was using her to speak to me, because it was a reason why I decided to tell her my story. Like, it didn't just come out of the blue. Yeah. And so because she was giving me that guidance and I just felt that it was the right time, it really like convicted me. And I felt convicted. And so I said, God, you're speaking to me, because I wouldn't feel convicted by her telling me this if it wasn't you talking to me. So at that time, that's how I knew that it was time for me to share my story with the masses. And when I was able to share it, I told the whole story and I didn't break down and cry. So I knew that that was confirmation for me that now it's time for me to continue telling that story and continue to help more people. So I just felt the direction from God that he was using that hairstylist at that time to push me to tell my story.
You know what I think is powerful? So your company, Mielle, was birthed out of this painful moment. And instead of separating your faith from your business, you have found a way to intertwine them both. You and I did an Instagram Live a couple weeks ago. And on that Instagram Live, we were on your company page. It wasn't like something that you did on your personal page because I want to keep my faith separate from my business. And I feel like so many people want to go into business. Maybe they feel like God is, giving them a vision, but they're not sure how their faith fits in the concept of their business. And yet your pain and your purpose were so intertwined that I guess it was impossible for you to not separate them and to not use your platform to ultimately tell a story. Do you think Mielle Organics is the tool and platform God has given you to preach out your testimony and your powerful journey?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I tried to run from it. I tried to fight it, I would say, because what you may or may not know, like public speaking to a lot, like that was something that I shied away from. Like I did not want to speak in front of people. I did not want to do panels, but God always gave me an opportunity and a platform. And I think about how he told Moses, like, to go do what he called Moses to do. And Moses tried to deny it and fight it and said, but God, how can I do that? I have a stuttering problem.
Yeah.
And God said, I will give you the words to speak. And so for me, it was me basically battling with God, like, God, I don't like public speaking. I don't want to go out here and talk on this panel and talk in front of all of these people. But he kept giving me all of these opportunities. And I felt that there was no way that I could not take advantage of the opportunity that I have been praying for. Like I prayed for my company to be blessed. I prayed for my company to grow and expand. And a part of my company growing and expanding is for me to go out there and speak. So I had to get over that fear of public speaking. I had to get out of my own way and think about how I'm serving God's people, because we're all here on this earth as vessels and our job is to serve others.
Yeah.
And once I learned to get out of my way and go into things with the servant mentality, that's when I learned to get over and accomplish that fear of getting out there and speaking to people and showing God's mercy and God's love. Because how can I not talk about how good God is when he's the one that brought me through? I was in a very, very dark place in my life. Like, how can I not share the goodness of how God brought me through there? Through that, I could have been depressed. I could have lost my mind. I could have had all of these other issues. I could have had postpartum. I didn't even have postpartum depression. Like, here I am. I just gave birth. I lost my son. I was not even depressed. I was sad. Of course, I was grieving, but I still kept it moving. And I had a great support system around me to help pick me up on the days that I did feel down. So, and then in the midst of all that, I discovered God. I developed a relationship with God. And then to see my company just shoot off, after being in business for 1 year, we had got a retail deal, which had never happened to a new brand before. We got that retail deal. We went into Sally Beauty, started in 95 stores. The day that we launched, we sold out in every single store in less than 2 hours. Like, you can't tell me that's not God.
Yeah.
So how can I keep all of that to myself? Because my goal is to empower others and inspire others to say, look, this is what happens when you give your life over to Christ. And I don't feel that God, if God did not want me to bring people to his kingdom, he wouldn't have put me through all of that. I wouldn't have went through all of that, because life is not easy. It's hard. And building a brand is not easy. It's not hard. And even in the midst of me building this brand, we have gone through different challenges and obstacles and trials and tribulations. But God always sees me through. And so I feel that he has this, Mielle Organics is a platform, is a stepping stone for us to do the greater calling. And I think my greater calling, I don't think, I know, is ministry. Even though that's because I know I tried to fight it. I didn't want to do it, but I keep getting pushed into this atmosphere or into these panels and these opportunities to talk about God and to speak about God. So it's like I can't deny it. I can't continue to run from it because God keeps calling me to do it. So I can never not talk about God in my company and not be ashamed because He's the reason why I'm here. He's the reason why I'm even doing this interview with you is because of His goodness and His grace and mercy. So I'm truly blessed and grateful for that.
That's so powerful. So I know that the loss of your son was a major turning point for you, but also you had the birth of your business and things began to take off. From the outside looking in, someone would say, okay, she had this, tragic loss in her life, but then everything seemed like it was smooth sailing after that. What have been some of the challenges that you have experienced even since that loss? And I don't know, I want to hear what you say and then I want to add something to that.
Okay, so some of the challenges, number one, not having any business experience, not coming from a marketing background. My husband he has a background in project engineering, so neither one of us come from a business environment. So trying to figure out how to navigate a business, how to grow a business, going from basically zero to being $1 million company, you're dealing with real money.
Yeah.
And you need to know how to manage real money. And not having the right expertise in place, we made a lot of financial mistakes. And because of those financial mistakes, it was times where we were trying to figure out how we were going to meet payroll. But on the outside looking in, you would have never guessed because I still showed up every day. I still showed up on Instagram with a smile on my face. I still educated women on hair care. I still went in the lab to help create products. You can't tell me God was not giving me that willpower to keep showing up despite us not figuring out how we're going to make payroll. Sometimes you'll have business owners that can't pay payroll and they'll be like, well, I don't know about y'all, but I'm going to make sure that I'm taken care of. Forget about y'all. We would have to take out loans, hard money loans in order to meet payroll. So things of that nature, people don't see that on the outside. We needed money to go into our Sally's deal, and nobody would loan us money. Couldn't go to a bank because we were a small business. We didn't have any business credit. We didn't want to take an investor at that time because an investor would come in and basically take over our whole company. So how are we able to go into Sally's? I'm scratching my head trying to figure out, here I am, I have this deal, and I don't even know how I'm going to fund the order to go in there because it's only so much you can bootstrap. When it's time to go into retail, that's a whole nother industry that you have to learn about. And it's not like e-commerce because now your value quadruples when you're going into retail. So now we're like, okay, how are we going to pay for this? By the grace of God, my husband had an old friend that he used to work with at UPS that believed in our vision, that was willing to loan us $250,000 to support our upfront retail costs without taking any ownership of our company.
Wow.
You couldn't tell me that's not God. But on the flip side, he loaned us the money. We have to pay him back. But guess what that interest rate is? It's very, very high. Mm-hmm. So even though he loaned us that $250,000, we probably paid him about $500,000-$600,000 back because he charged interest. So yes, we were able to go into retail. It looks really pretty, but this is what I had to do to go into the retail space. You have banking institutions that really don't want to give you the loan. They don't want to loan to us because we're minorities, we're Black-owned business, we're a young couple, we're a young business. So figuring out the right banking relationships to get to, so you can have a line of credit, so you can continue to fund your business, because you need a line of credit to go into these retail space. When you go into retail, then you have to worry about all the other fees and the chargeback that it costs. People look at the shelf and they say, oh, you're in Target, congratulations, great job, it's a great accomplishment, but there are also costs that go along with funding the shelf. Some retailers, they just want a percentage off of your revenue just because of their name. So things like that people don't see. And we got stuck with huge bills in, I think it was 2018, because not understanding that business part of it. all of that stuff came back to us because we're spending because we're trying to market, and grow the brand, but we ended up being upside down. So now we're trying to get ourselves out of this hole. And by the grace of God, we were able to work ourselves out of that hole because God supplied all the resources that we needed. And by the grace of God, He put all these connections, all of these resources, these banking relationships in our path. So when I say that God will supply all of your needs, He truly will, because He has supplied all of our needs, and we can continue to grow our business.
Do you think that because you experienced such a low with the passing of your son, that even though those were challenges that you experienced, not being able to meet payroll and not understanding those business aspects of building a business or transitioning into retail, do you think though when you have experienced a low that I mean is like rock bottom, depressed, I don't even know if I'm going to make it to tomorrow low, that when you have other obstacles, it's not that they aren't difficult, but it's like if I've been this low, I can't go any lower than this, and that's nothing compared to what I've already been through. So you have a little bit more maybe ammunition to fire
Yeah.
in the middle of your battle. I think for me, sometimes my team always talks about me because I get these ideas and I pretty much mean we should implement them tomorrow. And they're like, no, we should wait. We should do some research. We should dip our toe in the water. And I'm like, what? I mean, let's just go for it. I mean, I feel like part of the reason why I don't have some fears that I probably should have and some strategy that I probably should have before doing stuff is I just feel like I have lost. I mean, like I have been lost, like where the only thing I was asking God was to fix me a little bit in one area. And He is like done far beyond what I could have imagined. So now I feel like even if I try something and it doesn't work out, like at least I tried it because I've already been as low as I think that, I could go.
Right. And that's why I go back to the first question you asked me, like, how am I able to keep pushing during this pandemic? That's why I said, like, this, what we're going through, to me, is nothing. Like, what I've been through, like, I lost my son, our first boy. Like, we had a baby shower, everything. Like, we were so happy to be having a son. And to have that happen to me, like, my whole world flipped upside down. So, to your point, like, even what I went through with the challenges in my business, like nothing could ever compare to like what I went through with my son. So it has given me that tenacity to keep pushing. And again, I feel that God, when you go through things, like we don't like what we're going through, we can't understand it. But when you look back, like I can see how God was preparing me for everything that I've been through. Like He's prepared me for a time such as this. And that's what painful situations do. Like God is always trying to make you a better person. So even when we were going through challenges in my business, that told me that, okay, I need to be a better CEO. I need to really try to understand like the financial aspect of business, and not only understand the financial aspect of business, like I need to have, I need to study P&L. I need to have somewhat of an understanding of accounting. I'm not saying that I have to be an accounting whiz, but before, I didn't want to have anything to do with math because I hate math. It's like my least favorite subject. I like the marketing aspect. But this has showed me that as a business owner, you need to know everything, all the ins and outs, every aspect of your business. But I didn't think like that when I first started. But now I think like that now. So I'm constantly checking our P&Ls. I'm constantly making sure, that things are in order as far as our finances, because God prepared me for that as He was taking me through this storm to say, like, okay, you got to learn this. And in order for you to learn this, I'm going to have to take you through this to make you a better person. So because I went through that, I'm much different and I operate totally different now.
Yes, so and I just want to fill in the listeners who may not know, P&L is your profit and loss statements, which
Yeah.
are the only way you can really determine whether or not your business is successful. Even if you have people who are placing orders and the money's coming in, until you really look at your numbers, how much it cost you to do X, Y, and Z, and then how much profit you're making, it's really hard to determine those. I totally agree with you. I started our online boutique, I started the podcast, I started like all of these different businesses at one time, but it was just like fun fun for me. I was just doing stuff. But then I started realizing how much money I was spending to produce what was fun. Then I started wondering,
Yep.
am I actually profiting at all off of any of these things, or am I just doing stuff? And it doesn't mean that you don't do it if you're not making profit. It just means, I'm not making profit off of X, Y, and Z. And the
Right.
data is so, so, so important. What would be like if you had three business tips that you would give someone? He or she's got this idea, they have a way that they think they could maybe make it happen, but they're not sure what they should be focused on or where they should start.
So I would say I always tell people to start with your passion, because your passion is what's going to fuel you to keep going despite the times when you come into those obstacles and those challenges in your business. And to always remember that every challenge is an opportunity for you to rise. You need to have that passion, because if you get into business and let's say your business is not making money right away, are you still going to show up every day and still push that brand and push your business as you would if you were making $1 million? That's where that passion is going to come in. If I didn't love what I was doing, I wouldn't have continued to keep going, because I would have felt that it wasn't worth it. So you really need to be passionate about something. And a lot of people say, well, how do I find my passion, or how do I know what my passion is? I don't know what my purpose is. I tell people, what was that one thing that you loved to do as a child that you did carelessly and everyone known you for it, and you would still do it today even if you didn't get paid for it? What was that one thing? And whatever that one thing is, that's probably something that you can turn into a career. You have to make sure that you're also solving a problem. So for me, I had a passion. I've always loved hair care. I was always into caring for my hair ever since I was a little girl. Like, you can ask my mom. She always caught me in the bathroom playing in my hair. So when I got older and I decided that, this is what I wanted to start talking about on social media, that was my gift. People always know me for Monique with the long hair or Monique with the nice hair, because I always kept my hair up. So now here I am operating in this gift, not knowing that this was something that I was going to turn into an actual business, and my gift made room for me. I was also transitioning from severely heat damaged hair to wanting my natural curls to pop. So here I am operating in my gift, but I'm also solving a problem, because it was my problem, but it was also other women's problems who look like me, because we all share the same type of hair challenges. So I did my passion. I started, operating in my gift, and I was solving a problem. And that was helping women with their natural hair, with better products, with healthier ingredients, and showing them also how to transition from whether you had relaxed hair or you had severely heat damaged hair, showing you how to transition and go into getting your natural curls back. So I was solving a problem. And then the other thing that I would say for entrepreneurs is to always keep God first. First and foremost, that's what I should have said first. But at the end of the day, when you can go to however many business seminars, you can go to however many marketing academies, you can listen to however many podcasts. If you don't keep God front and center, your business is not going to be sustainable. You may have get a little bit of money here and there, but you're only going to go so far, because running your operation and not keeping God first, that's the thing. You're only just going to go so far. So I'm all about sustainability. I'm all about being genuine, being authentic, and letting my authentic self and sharing that with the world, and keeping God front and center so he can sustain my business, so he can sustain what I love doing. So that's first and foremost, making sure that you keep God first, making sure that you have a passion, and also making sure that you are a problem solver as an entrepreneur.
So, okay, so you've got this incredible business and it is taken off. Are you still as passionate about it as when it first began, or have you noticed that your passions are expanding? And if so, what are your passions expanding to these days?
So my passion is now, I feel like, even more on fire than it ever, like when I first started, because now my audience is bigger. Now I can really get a chance to connect and engage and see how me creating products is actually changing people's lives. So every morning that I wake up, I write down what I'm grateful for. I pray, and I ask myself, how can I make a difference in someone else's life? How can I be impactful in someone else's life? So not only has my passion for creating great products has grown, but also my passion for wanting to inspire and impact lives even more.
Mm.
Because as my business has grown and evolved, I have seen the shift in where God is taking me, and God is taking me in a different direction to continue to motivate and to continue to build impact. Because when you talk about legacy, like people are going to remember me for my Mielle, they're going to remember me for great hair, but I really want people to remember me for the impact on lives that I have changed while I'm here on earth. And so that's what I continue to ask myself every day, and that continues to push me and motivate me. So even during this quarantine, that's why my sales broker, she was like, you are just like so busy. I get a notification that you're on live all the time. You're always on. And I told her, I said, because I know that not everyone has the same mindset as me. Not everyone has the same willpower that's going to get up and be motivated and show up with passion every day. So I said, it's my job to impact them and to help improve their day and to help make their day a little bit brighter. Because at the end of the day, people will always remember how you made them feel. They may not remember what you said to them, but they're going to remember how you made them feel. So now I have a burning desire to continue to make people feel good each and every day. So that's how my passions have evolved.
Okay, so I just have one more question for you. I wrote this song to go with my book Lost and Found, and it was called Dear Lost Me. And part of the chorus is like, I wrote a letter to the girl I used to be. And I wonder, if you had to write a letter to the girl you used to be, what would you say to her?
That's a good question. If I had to write a letter to the girl that I used to be, I think it would go back to taking the expectations off of people, and the reason why I wanted to go back to that, because like I really had real trust issues. And I would tell myself that, what someone else did is not a reflection of you. You have to know that God loves you. You have to be confident in the love that God has for you and confident in the gift that he has given you, and not worry about other people's mistakes or other people's past mistakes. Let that be a reflection on your life, but continue to operate in God's love and continue to keep pressing forward despite your circumstances, because you're going to be great one day, but I need you to believe in yourself that you're going to be great. And I really would put an emphasis on believing in yourself, because it took me a while to really trust myself and to trust my abilities. I doubted myself. That's why I was in my nursing career for so long. So I would put an emphasis on trust your gut, believe in yourself. You can do anything that you set your mind to, but you need to put God first. You need to believe that in his word. And if you ask, if you believe, then you shall receive it.
That's beautiful. I think that sounds like something our listeners need to write down and post on their mirror, to really believe in yourself. It takes you such a long way. Thank you for spending some time with us, sharing your lost and found story.
I'm honored to be on your podcast, and thank you so much for having me. This was definitely a pleasure.
Thank you. And I will see you in July.
Yes.
We're holding on to it. We won't let it go.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, you take care.